especially since and Pastor Swan and his family know this already as well. Right, living at the parsonage, the church is almost an extension of the house. Right, so Ryan still remembers every nook and cranny in this building. Yeah, you know. So I have a kind of a stock presentation that I'm doing in all the churches. This it's going to be a little different here. Right? Okay. Because a little more of a mix of the personal as well as kind of what the professional. Right? So I'm going to fly through some of the professional stuff so that you can talk about it and answer some questions. So we'll skip this. So, I mean, the big thing, usually when we think of missionaries, we think of spreading the gospel, right? And that's kind of the big thing. We have three focuses that we focus on is spreading the gospel, planting Lutheran churches, and showing mercy. At the center of that, of course, is the church, right? It's planting Lutheran churches. And so we aren't just talking to people about Jesus, but it's inviting them to where Jesus promises to be present for us, right? His words. In the same way with showing mercy, and we have lots of opportunities to do that. Where we are. So we're part of the Latin American and Caribbean region of the international mission. There's 5 different regions. So basically anything south of the border is part of Latin American and Caribbean. And in this part, Ryan, say hi. There's Ryan. So all throughout Latin America, just a brief overview, throughout Latin America we have 45 LCMS missionaries and their families, coming out to about 150 altogether, right, when you include all the spouses and children. There's 11 alliance missionaries and their families, so those are Lutheran missionaries that are part of sister churches in other countries. So the guy here is Brazilian, and he lives in the Dominican Republic as well. Serves in the capital city of Santiago. And then we have 56 missionaries then spreading the gospel in 13 countries.
That's 56 missionaries, not including their families.
Not including the families. So, that's kind of the broad overview of the whole area. The Dominican Republic, of course, where we live here, right? Here's Mexico, Florida, this is Cuba, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, so we're here, Venezuela, Colombia, we're down over here. Dominican Republic is the headquarters for all of what the LCMS does in Latin America. Okay, so we have what's called the regional director. He's basically the district president. He lives about a mile down the road from us. He's a member of our congregation. So the Dominican Republic is a strange or unique area. Not strange, but it's unique in that it centers on 3 things. So we're the regional headquarters. So we have missionaries who are regional missionaries. They really have little to do in the Dominican Republic, but work all throughout Latin America. They just live okay? We have the local missionaries for the Dominican Republic, and then we have a regional seminary. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. So we live in the city of Santiago, the second largest city in the country, about 1 million people. In the city, close to the northern coast, kind of about here, about 50 miles, more or less, from the ocean. We have to cross some mountains to get there. But we live in a community, and all the missionaries live in the same community, the same neighborhood. So we have about a dozen missionaries on the island. A couple of them live in the capital city, Santo Domingo, which is on the southern coast. but the rest of us live in Santo, we're in Santiago, the city up in the north. The other so it's the second largest island in the Caribbean next to Cuba. 2/3 is the DR, 1/3 is Haiti. We do not have much interaction with Haiti right now. It has been functioning government in about 3 years. But the border has been closed. There's a wall. There's military garrisons. There's regular roundup of illegal aliens in the country and deportations. So it's kind of a constant thing, right? But we don't have much interaction because you can't legally cross border. That's that. So, a little bit about what I do. So I have basically two big jobs. First one is I'm the head pastor of the Lutheran Church of Pueblo. Okay. So here's a picture of the front of the church. Here, so this is church is about 17 years old. It's a mix of missionaries and Latinos who live there. This man right here is a vicar from St. Louis. So in my time there, we've had 2 U.S. vicars, as well as 3 Latino seminarians. Okay. So we have 40 people, 50 on a Sunday meeting, somewhere around there, in this church. So, and it's St. Pueblo Nuevo because that's the neighborhood that the church is located in. So here's just a zoom in of the city. So the current church you can see is right here. This whole neighborhood right here is Pueblo Nuevo.
Wow.
So it's one of the poorer parts of the city. But it's located very near the center of the city is back over here. But when you see up right here and then just a little bit up at the top right there, baseball is kind of a big thing in the DR.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the Grand Arena right here is the basketball stadium, and right next to it is the baseball stadium for the city. And the city team is the national champions, right? So the church is just a few blocks from these 2 big stadiums, right? So we get a lot of traffic, right? A lot of availability to talk to people out in the area. And this is one of the main roads that run. Runs the church is right by this major road that runs over here. There's another one here, and a light rail system that's been put in here so that people can get over to the stadiums. So location-wise, it's at a very good location, right, in the area. So again, the city's about 1 million people. We're the only LCMS church within the city. So yes, we are the only established LCMS church. The church so I served as pastor there for a little over 1.5 years now, and the church has planted a new church already. So in a neighborhood about 30 minutes away. So that's up and going. It will Bible studies, catechism classes right now, and by the end of the year should be starting their first church service with confirmed members. So, yeah. So most of my work in regards to the church takes place right here. And we do a lot of visitation. We'll talk about that here in a minute. A lot of walking through the neighborhood, talking to people, visiting members, doing evangelism calls. Yes, ma'am.
So is where the compound where the missionaries live, is that
No.
right around?
No, it's 4 kilometers away, so about 2 miles, right? From this to the north of this, so we all live in a different neighborhood. It's a little more centrally located because there's different, since we all live there, we scatter, right, and go to different locations. To give you an idea of the traffic's horrible. But to give you an idea, I get about 3 miles away. On a Sunday, it takes 10 to 15 minutes to get to church. The rest of the week, it takes about 45 minutes.
Wow. Now, how's driving?
Driving is nuts. It's one of the, it's in the top 5 consistently of worst traffic in the world. Highest auto death rate in the world.
Wow.
Mostly because the motorcycles are everywhere. Yeah, and there's not, nobody follows, there's rules and laws.
Right.
Taking your own life.
Yes, so it's an experience.
Any urgent care facilities?
There's hospitals, yeah, in fact, there's right here, where the H is, I mean, that's a hospital, I wouldn't go there. But there's one right there. Yeah, in different parts of the cities, there's some hospitals. They're decent. Urgent care isn't a thing. It's hospital. Most of the doctors' offices are located in the hospitals as well, which actually makes a lot of sense. When you go and see the doctor, so you do the testing and all that kind of stuff. And if someone needs to be admitted, you're already in the building. So, church life is church life. I mean, it's really not, in a lot of ways, it's not that different than what you get here. Right? So we have regular morning services at 10 a.m. We do Advent and Lenten services on Wednesdays at 6. We do a lot of big emphasis is on visitation there, so we're out in the community visiting people a lot. Dominican lifestyle is lived outside, so there's people out all day long and all night, and so we just walk around and talk. And they're very open to doing that. So we have potlucks on occasion. We have Bible study that we do with different events. Again, it's not that different. Church life is church life. It's the same Christ, the same gospel, the same love of Christ. Yes, sir.
So, in terms of like the Dominican compared to other regions of Latin America, are there community events like historically like Las Posadas and some of the other, Roman Catholic processionals, and like how do you interact with some of those community events in terms of either, because I remember at St. Louis doing Las Posadas with Dr. Sanchez, but how does that kind of work in terms of like visitation, integration, and community life?
So pretty much, if you ask somebody if they're Christian, almost inevitably they'll say yes. And you say, oh, well, what church? And you say Roman Catholic, and he'll say, oh, well, wonderful. When was the last time you went to church? And they'll start counting.
23 years ago.
They'll say, well, my nephew is 17 and I went to his baptism. Okay? So it's very, very, very culturally Roman Catholic. And the Catholic Church is one of, there's only a handful of countries in the world that have an official agreement and deal with the Vatican, where the president of the country is approved by the Archbishop of the DR, and the president approves of the Vatican's appointments for bishops and archbishops as well. The Roman Catholic Church also then gets, they don't have to pay any taxes on the properties. They can build and do things in different places. They have access to public venues. So they'll do big processions. And by big processions, I mean thousands and thousands of people, right? That walk right down this street, right? So Semana Santa is the biggest, that's Holy Week. That's the biggest celebration time of the year. And you'll have wall-to-wall people, so this is a 4-lane road. I mean, all the way down. Wall-to-wall people. And so they're also, they're very open for us to be involved in certain things. There's not a lot of, especially since we're more traditional, conservative, liturgical, it's familiar to them. So it opens up a lot of doors. Wearing a collar opens up a lot of doors for us to participate and do things. Part of this deal is, as well, the Roman Catholic required at every public and private school is a class called Human Formation. And the Catholic priests or deacons often teach that, but we're able to get into the schools and do this as well. And it's basically just a religious education, moral education. But again, because of who we are, they allow us to come and teach that as well. So, think the closest comparison to Idaho, think like the kind of cultural acceptance the Mormons, right, have here. And how they have their seminary buildings right next to the schools, and how they can, get out of school for an hour and go over and do this, their class, and it's just accepted, right, and promoted. So, kind of the same idea. But Christian, bigger skill set more. So, but we're allowed to come in and do that and participate as well with some things. So, we regularly get into the schools and teach, and we use the Bible in small cabinets.
So with being, you comparing it to kind of being like Mormons kind of here, I know like a lot of Christians view Mormons as not really Christian.
Right.
Is that kind of the view that a lot of people have there of like, those Lutherans, they say they're Christian, they're not actually Christian, or
They have great question. They have no idea who Lutherans are. So.
Another version.
Yeah. And that's kind of a blessing and a curse, right? And because in one way, then we get to tell them, right? In another, and there's no association with the liberal Lutherans, so that's a blessing, right? And it's a curse because then nobody knows us, right? So we have or very little cultural standing, right? But again, this is where our something we found, right? Where our again our kind of confessional, liturgical, historical continuity with the universal church helps. So we often say, well, yes, we're Catholic, we're not Roman. Right? But we're Catholic in the sense of we're part of the Christian church, right? And we're Lutheran. And then they'll say, what does that mean? And our usual response is, well, let me tell you about Jesus. And then at the end, I just had this conversation not too long ago. It was a Mexican seminarian and I were visiting, and our U.S. vicar here. U.S. vicar, he's 6'8". He's a giant. So more than twice my weight. He's my bodyguard.
Never going wearing that shirt.
So we were talking to somebody about. So they asked like, well, who are you? And so we told them about Jesus. And they said at the end, and they said, well, you never told us who you are. And we said, yes, we did. Right? We're the ones that talk about Jesus. It's not about us. It's about Christ. And that for these people, that really resonated with the people that we were talking to, right? Because it wasn't just me talking about him, but the one who has the body of Christ.
Yeah, when was the last time you heard the gospel? What it said 2 years ago?
Right.
That's what
And the Roman Catholic Church here in the country, they're a conundrum. They're not. You go into their church service, it looks like a Pentecostal service, It's on liturgical usually. It's very charismatic, lots of dancing around, chants and prancing, right? So you have a priest wearing a chasuble, but literally dancing in front of the church. That's also Dominican culture. But you wouldn't know, you go to a Pentecostal, and they're probably the next big cultural Christian force in the country, Pentecostals. But if you walked into a Pentecostal church and a Roman Catholic church, you almost wouldn't know the
How big is the Mormon?
difference. There's a presence.
Yeah.
They're not huge, but there's they send missionaries there. Jehovah's Witnesses. There's a fairly large Jehovah's Witness presence.
How long has there been a Lutheran presence there?
20 years. Well, there's been a presence for 25. But the first churches were started 20 years ago.
Well, we've been 125 years in Latin America.
125 years in Latin America. Starting, anybody guess where in Latin America where we started mission work?
Argentina.
Argentina. And one other country.
Brazil.
Brazil. Why?
Germans.
Because that's where the Germans were.
Oh, that makes sense.
So there are the most established church bodies in Latin America or in those countries. Sister churches, one from daughter to sister churches. Right? So, question mark.
On average, the people that you interact with or whatever, do they understand the concept of Protestant? I mean,
Yes,
they
yeah.
know that they understand the difference.
They do. It's not very deeply, but they do. Yeah. So it's again that's part of the challenge, but it's also part of the blessing of it. Is there's a very surface level understanding of the Christian faith altogether, and just a basic understanding of difference. There are different denominations, what they are. That provides us a wonderful opportunity to tell them about Jesus and things that they don't. The average Roman Catholic doesn't go to church regularly at all. So it gives us a chance to do that. The challenge then, again, is connecting them to the church, right? Is getting them to the church. Because it is a culturally Roman Catholic. And again, just kind of some similarities to here. One of the challenges for Mormonism here, right, is the cultural aspect. And what does that mean to leave Mormonism to be part of Christianity? And that's a hard transition at times, right? So that's kind of the closest comparison.
And you kind of touched on it. I know that places like Brazil, the Pentecostal charismatic is exploding. So it's the same thing a bit in the Dominican as well?
Yeah, and some of it's some of it is because it's more emotion driven. There's also a closer connection. So ethnically, Dominican Republic is a mix between primarily between Spanish and African. So there's not most of the Native Americans that lived in the Caribbean died very, very quickly from disease. The DR was one of the first places when Columbus landed. He stopped in the DR. His tomb supposedly is there. So we visited Columbus's tomb. It's mostly African and Spanish. And so there's a lot of syncretism with African religion. Animism, so kind of spiritualism, ancestor worship. Think voodoo. I mean, that's more on the Haiti side. You get more voodoo stuff. And the DR is called Santeria. 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 And so it's kind of this mix and blend. And Pentecostalism lends itself to that more easily. And I'm not talking about like, when I say Pentecostalism, I'm talking about rolling on the ground, speaking in tongues, snake handling, like kind of an extreme form of that.
That kind of answered part of the question. So I was going to ask, what's the largest like Pentecostal like, presence there? Is it like an organization like Assemblies of God or something, or is it?
It would basically be Assemblies of God, but maybe even a little more like extreme. There's also pockets of Oneness Pentecostal, so those that deny the Trinity. Yeah. So one of the fun things we get to do here in this picture as well is on, what Sunday do you think that is? Palm Sunday, right? So we do a whole procession and sing songs through Puerto Rico on Palm Sunday, starting about 30 minutes before church starts. So a lot of the church shows up to do that. And we just cut the palm branches off the trees in our yards.
Well, that's easy.
We don't have the little ones like here. We got the whole big old branch. And there's some pictures of the kids doing stuff too. So that's in the processions. And Ryan is the congregation's first acolyte. Usually we have the seminarians before we have the seminarians.
You just save the branches and burn them and
Yeah. Yeah, well, we don't really have to say that. But yeah.
You have red ones.
Yeah.
They're right there.
Yeah. Yep, we do the same thing. Yeah. All branches and use up the ashes. Yep. So this was, these were just taken this year too. During Lent and Palm Sunday. So there's just a couple pictures of gatherings, right? So we have a ladies group that meets on occasion, and then this is something around right before Christmas time, where we had an event at the church with some of the kids. We also have a national youth gathering that we do. It's actually this weekend right now, so I got messages this morning from people who were there about it. We have about 80 people coming over to a little mountain town. So this was from last year that we do it, and it's kind of modeled after Higher Things. Higher Things. Part of the reason is my predecessor at the church, his name is Pastor Joel Fritchie, who now is the guy in charge of vicarage in St. Louis, but he's had a lot of involvement with Higher Things over here. So as the church developed more, he said, well, let's kind of take that model, right, and use that here. So these are youth and some seminarians, pastors from, we have 5 established churches on the island, 2 in the capital and 3 in Santiago, and a couple other mission sites. Yes, Steve?
Do kids play on baseball teams and stuff?
Yeah.
Baseball's such a-
Yeah, baseball's a big thing. So some of them are on baseball. For us, one of the big things, well, I'll get to this in a second, so I'm gonna hold off on sport. Yeah, we go around visiting, again, do lots of visits. So we got to do a blessing of the business office. So as for those of you who are here, I mean, this was 5 years ago, right, when I did my demon project on house blessing. So I got to adapt some of that. This was only a few people. When I just started, we ended up having about 60 people show up to bless the business for this one. But one of the places we regularly go is a nearby community called El Congo. And we meet underneath this big tree right here. And there's always people sitting out there. And so we just go and we sit down and start talking and people stop by and sit down and chat and have a cup of coffee and ask questions about the Bible and Jesus and what are we doing. So on pretty much weekly basis, we get to go over. Unless it's raining. It's not like rain.
How's the coffee?
Oh, it's great. I brought some with me so that I would have it over these.
I knew you would.
How are the cigars? They're great. My wife doesn't like it. She came early, so her and the boys came a few weeks ago to California, to Bakersfield, where her parents are. And so they were there for a couple weeks, because I still had work to do. We had a theological symposium at the seminary and graduation at the seminary. So I probably shouldn't say this with my wife right there, but let's just say I probably had enough cigars in a week or week and a half last 2 years. And even when you don't, everybody else is smoking it, so. You walk home and she's like, "Did you smoke a cigar today?" I'm like, "No," but everybody else does.
No, I inhaled everybody else.
Smell like a chimney. So, yeah, here's just a couple other examples of some people's houses that we go and visit. Yeah. So outside on the patio, one person's house, this is in the home of another person, a woman named Selene. And Selene, just an example, we visit with her. She came to an eyeglass clinic that we held, and that's how we got the connection. We visit with her and her mother, and we're in the process of catechesis with her. So my plan is on Reformation Sunday to have a confirmation class with her and maybe 1 or 2 others. She's an interesting character, has some mental health challenges, difficulty obtaining medicine. She lives with her mother and her brother, and their house is maybe half the size of this room, maybe. Right? And made out of wood, a tin roof, right, in the heart of the city. So very, very poor, very interested though in the Bible. Never sure much. So she's wonderful. A wonderful woman to visit, and her mother. It's right here. So Selene and her mother's Alta Gracia.
So our seminarians are all different age ranges. One that just graduated, he was a lawyer in Mexico. His wife had 2 masters in psychology and different things. And one that just came from Cuba. His wife is a doctor of blood doctor? Hematology. And so she was able to come and help Selene's mom in one of the visits. So we were able to provide not just God's word, but help through other means also in different ways. Which is very
Diabetes
blessing.
is very common here and often untreated.
It was just,
So she had Alta Gracia.
she wasn't getting
kind of